Hey, this is Lou, and in this presentation, I'm going to take you through what you need to prepare before you get your new website, or if you're thinking about a redesign, what things you need to get ready before you start working, before you start seeking out a web designer or a web developer. And the aim of this presentation is to help you save time, reduce stress, and help you decide on how to build your website in such a way that it actually supports your business and give you some benefits instead of being a bit of a time and money sink. Because ultimately, I get really excited about building websites that actually serve a purpose and help you achieve something or help do something for you. So let's get into it. First, let's talk about why preparation matters. So if you come to me prepared, if you've done a little bit of homework, that makes my job so much easier and smoother. It reduces the amount of meetings we need to have. It reduces the amount of confusion. It reduces the amount of revisions we have to do because I don't think anyone really likes it if we're given a briefing for a project and then suddenly midway through everything changes and we have to redo things and everyone gets upset when you're given a quote for something and then you something changes and then the quote totally changes like that can be pretty disruptive. So what I aim to do here is help us understand how to clarify our project before we step into it, and then we don't have to get angry or confused or fumble around with updated quotes or um, get lost going on forever with revisions because we keep changing our mind. And I also got to say that if we get something up and running sooner rather than later, you can start gaining benefit from it sooner rather than later. A incomplete website is better than no website. And the other beautiful thing about websites is that you can add things to it later down the road. But if we sort of get a solid scope of work out in the beginning and we can complete something, then as I said, you can start reaping the benefits of that live website. So the absolute first thing that I'd like you to get clear on is your purpose. So what does this website need to do? What does it need to do for you? What does it need to do for your business? And the obvious answer is to help you get sales or to get inquiries or bookings. But what does that actually mean though? And what's actually involved? If there's some unanswered questions here, such as who your audience is, what they need to see from you in order to buy, in order to take a step forward, then that work should be done first before we start stepping into, okay, what sort of, what sort of content do we need to make? And then also it's a good idea to ask yourself, where does this website fit into your wider business strategy? Where does it fit into your marketing plan? For a lot of people, a website could simply be a catalog of services or products, and you go out and you show your link, you send your link to people. But actually, it can be a lot more than that. Your website can do more than just be an extension of your business card that you send to people. It can do more than that. And I've actually got a podcast episode where I talk more about the different things a website can do for your business. So I'll link to that in the notes of this presentation. Okay, let's move on. So once we actually know what the purpose of our website is, then we can start mapping out some content. So it's a good idea to determine ahead of time what sort of pages you need. The basic ones are home, about, services, contact us. Pretty much every website should have those, unless you are exclusively selling physical products and not services, then you'll have your product pages. And then, of course, you may want to consider um, those sort of fine print pages like FAQs, frequently asked questions, terms of use, your policy, refund policy, things like that. And then you'll also have to determine how much content needs to be written. So, in order to spare you from overthinking about how much content you need to write, My general rule of thumb is you need to write just enough to get the point across of what your product or service is. So get the point across of what it is, no need to fluff around. There's absolutely no need to reach a particular word count. In many situations, that's not really important. Just say enough to explain what it is, say enough to help your client or your customer understand that, yes, this is what I'm looking for, and yes, this is the right person to give it to me, and yes, I can trust them. So those are the things that you need to consider being ready to articulate in the pages of your website. And then you'll want to ask yourself, okay, I've got messages, I've got things that I need to say on my website, but do I want to write it myself or get a copywriter? Do you write it yourself or get a copywriter? So if you're super keen on writing content yourself, that's absolutely okay. Just be prepared to allocate some time to that. If you were to ask me which one I think is better, there are situations where I'd say if you are good at talking to your customers and explaining what you do and you know your thing better than anyone else, absolutely have a go at writing the details yourself. But there are some situations where it may actually be better to hire a copywriter. Maybe a copywriter can sort of take what you know and what you do and articulate it in a way that actually resonates better with what your audience is looking for. And also hiring a copywriter to do the content, the written content of your website can save you time. So if you're already quite busy and if you find yourself taking a lot of time to actually finish writing what you need to write and you've got to go back and forth with, running your business and doing your thing and writing this stuff in your spare time, it may actually be beneficial to hire a copywriter to do that for you. So just bear that in mind. So pros and cons here. You can write it yourself. You know your thing better than anyone else. That's a totally okay if you want to do that. Just be prepared to allocate that time to do that, so that you can get your website out in a timely manner and start getting the benefits, start attracting leads and inquiries. So there's that. And also consider how a user, a visitor might actually flow through your website. So we may, in many cases, start on a homepage, but everyone's going to take a slightly different path when they discover you on the internet, or maybe they meet you for the first time in person. Either way, there are multiple different entry points that someone can enter into your website. In many situations, though, if somebody's got to be working one-to-one with you, then having an about page is beneficial just so they get some familiarity with the person that they're working with. And if you're selling physical goods, again, having those returns and shipping and turnaround times, that having that kind of information helps put people at ease and, gives them some assurance that we're not expecting something to go wrong, but you do have something in place in case it does. And that creates trust and that helps people feel comfortable working with you or buying something from you. So I've put this up here just to help us visualize what a web page could look like and what it could contain. So in order to explain how your pages should look, I've stripped out any kind of context here in terms of subject matter just to give you, just so we can imagine here what could go in your web page. So if we're thinking about putting pictures on your web page, think about what we need to see in order to feel assured that this is the right thing for me to buy or this is the right service for me to get. So for physical items, obviously having some good quality photos, show the product from different angles, show the product in use. If it's something that you wear, show pictures of it being worn. If it's a tool, show that tool being used in context, in scene. And if it's a service, and if you're feeling not quite comfortable about showing your face, that's okay. The images are not going to be as important. If you're selling services to people, What's going to be important is the headings and the headlines of your page. So in order to make a good impact, you want to be able to clearly say what that person's going to get from this service. You want to sell the dream, essentially. So, for example, in my case, I'm not just making a website. Anybody can make a website. What I'm making is a professional website that positions you as a trustworthy expert so that you can charge more, so that you can attract high quality leads, so you can attract more aligned clients. In your case, it might be feel better again with coaching. You're not just selling a medicine, you're not just selling a therapy, you are selling an outcome, which is to help someone feel better again, help someone make better decisions, help someone feel confident in dating, go out and find their life partner if you're a dating coach. So it's not relationship coaching, it's the dream outcome is you're helping somebody get confident so they can find their match. So those are the types of things you want to articulate with your words. If you're a service provider and if you're selling physical goods, then show the goods. That's what you need. So here's where we talk about what visuals you need. So again, just to re-articulate, ask yourself if you are going to need photography. Are photos going to help you confidently articulate the dream outcome of what you're selling to your client? If you can do that with pictures, great. You don't necessarily have to. Sometimes some really impactful words can make a difference in getting that person to feel sold on the dream outcome. And if you're struggling to write those words, that's what a good copywriter can do for you. Otherwise, ask yourself if decorations are going to be important. A lot of people come to me really loving the aesthetic of icons in a grid. I know that looks very nice, but those icons don't come from thin air. So if you would like something like that incorporated into your website design, please make sure that you articulate that. So yeah, it's a good idea to have a think about what sort of images or icons or graphics you need, and don't automatically assume that that's given. The more detail you give to me, the more helpful it is in terms of giving you a quote, because I don't want to be midway through a project and you come to me and say, oh, hang on, I actually wanted icons in a grid here. Oh, didn't say that at the start. See what I mean? It's going to be a lot helpful. And just a quick note, if you really want to have, say, AI generated graphics or photos, what you do on your website is your business, and I'm not going to police you. I'm not going to stop you if you've got a website you own and you want to use those kind of images. However, for me specifically, if you come to me with an entirely new website project and you have no images and you want me to generate AI graphics and images, uh, my personal stance and my ethics, I will refuse to do that. You're welcome to use generated images if you like once you own the website, on your own website. But yeah, I don't generate images with AI. So just bear that in mind. That's just me specifically. If you absolutely want that, I'm sure you can find someone to help you out there, or you can do that yourself. But I'm not going to police you, but I'm also not going to generate images and icons with AI. Okay, so now let's talk about your domain and your hosting and your email. So if you don't know what these things are, that is okay. And if you don't know what to choose, that is okay. I'm here to help you with these things and make it clearer and easy to understand. So hosting and domain. I like to use an analogy of a car. So hosting is a space, it's a server, a computer, it's a physical disk out somewhere It could be in your country, it could be overseas, but it's a disk where all the pages of your website and your files are. And then a domain name is your whateveryouare.com.au that tells the person on the internet, the person using a computer or the phone, this is where it is, this is where the files are. So to use the car analogy, hosting is the car, the road is the internet, and the domain is the number plate, the license plate on the car. So we use that to identify which specific car we're talking about. Now, having a domain name definitely does position you as professional. And if you're unsure which extension to get, there are many schools of thought here, and a lot of people will tell you that a .com or a .com.au will make you look trustworthy because uh, those extensions have been around for a long time and they're very recognizable. So you can create this sort of impression that you've been around for a while and that you're very well established. Um, I could share many different kinds of opinions with you, but at the end of the day, it's entirely up to you whether you want to be a .com or a .online or a .shop or a .au. When it does come to country domains, so .au, .australia, that is important if you are predominantly doing business in Australia and you just want to make that clear that you are an Australian business. Uh, it's totally up to you whether or not you want that. Just bear in mind that with country extensions like .au, there are some additional requirements. For instance, with a .au, you are going to have to prove that you are an Australian business and that you are eligible to own that type of domain. So again, with hosting, it really depends on what your particular needs are. If you're not sure, I can help you out here. And then also there's your email, your @domain email. So that is going to require some additional setup and potentially some additional costs as well. If you want to at your domain email address, that's entirely up to you. Just bear in mind that it is going to be a great benefit to have a dedicated service for that, such as Google Workspace or a Microsoft account, and that is going to be an additional cost. So just bear that in mind when you're setting up your website and your domain. If you really want that professional at your domain.com or .com.au, it's going to be costs involved. So I do say to some of my clients, if you're got your name at Hotmail or Yahoo or whatever, I'm personally not fussed. If you're an individual, if you're a sole trader, it doesn't bother me personally. At the end of the day, it's really up to you and what kind of impression you want to make on people. All right, now let's talk about connecting your systems. So oftentimes when you've got a website that's just there, that's got information and pictures for people to look at, but then what do people do next? So there's a number of things we can actually connect into our website, and this can be email marketing, so we can have a sign up form to your newsletter. We can have a CRM or a booking system. So there are situations where it might be a good idea to actually have a calendar on your website that people can use to book appointments with you. You can even collect money for appointments booked on your website. These are good things to consider before you start building it. And that is because different website hosting platforms may have different rules or may have different costs involved if you would like to include, say, a booking calendar or a cart or a payment system or something like that. So there are some really good things to sort out at the beginning, not when you're midway building a website. Also, some really good things to consider here are whether or not you want Google Analytics. So if you don't know what Google Analytics is, that's fine. It's a topic for another day. If you do want that, it's a good idea to get access to that sorted out, as well as being prepared to, once your website's ready to go live, be prepared to grant access to your web developer so that they can connect your domain name and other such things to your new website. So I just want to briefly come back to your at domain email. So if you've got that, then you and your web developer need to bear in mind that when your new website is ready, then you may need to grant them access to your settings just to make sure that everything's going to continue working properly. So that's a bit of a techie thing. It's going to be hard to explain how to do all that. So just bear in mind that that is something that you're going to have to, you might have to cross that when you're building a new website. Now, I also want to emphasize your part in this project. So, how hands-on or how hands-off you want to be, it's entirely up to you. But bear in mind when you're working with a designer and or developer, they may ask you for some feedback, and of course, you will get a say on how your website looks and what it's going to be like before it gets published. So just bear in mind that when you start working on a website, you may need to just have a little bit of time and headspace free so you can get back to reviews so that you can have a look for yourself, just to make sure that you're happy with it. And again, if you have decided that you would like to write the content, just bear in mind that you are going to need to have some time and headspace to do that. And also consider timeframes. When would you like this website to be ready? I would say my opinion is get it out as soon as possible. As I said, the sooner you get it out, the sooner you can start getting leads, growing audience, and making sales. So there are many cases where I've worked on websites where it's just gone back and forth for months. And in all of that time that we spent going back and forth and waiting for stuff to happen, the months had gone by where there were missed opportunities for people to find you on Google, for instance. And in that time, we could have easily just put up a homepage and maybe an email newsletter sign up so you can start generating those audience members in the meantime. So yeah, just bear that in mind. The sooner we go and get everything sorted, the sooner you can start earning some money back from your website. Next, let's also think about what happens after the website goes live. So this is actually something great to think about before you start. It's all well and good to want to have a website, but there are some situations and some website hosting platforms and website building platforms that will require a bit of hands-on maintenance. I'm specifically talking about WordPress here when it comes to maintenance. So there are some website platforms where, say, Shopify or Squarespace, where all the techie server updates and things like that are all done in the background for you and you never have to think about them. But if you're set on having a WordPress website, then maintenance is non-negotiable. You are going to have somebody with a bit of tech knowledge on hand just to make sure that things such as background server things are maintained and kept working so that you don't incur any loss of website traffic or business. I've also put a point here how you'll measure success. So there are things we can do to actually measure and confirm that yes, your website is working. Yes, it's generating leads. Yes, it's generating inquiries. Yes, you're getting newsletter signups. And yes, you're getting purchases. For me, I would feel so much happier and so much more delighted if we can look at our statistics and say, hey, yes, indeed, this website is generating business. This website is generating sales, as opposed to being something that just sits out there and doesn't receive people at all or only does when you think about it. And then you also might want to think about future content needs. So websites are not books and they're not billboards. In many situations, it's a good idea to keep your content fresh with new services, new blog posts, testimonials. There may be circumstances where, say, if you're offering some kind of healthcare, maybe some policy has changed, so you'll need to update some information about that on your webpage. There was a time several years ago when people had to put up messages on their websites about coming in for in-person appointments and having to switch to telehealth and Zoom appointments and things like that. So there may be some future situations that come up, and so be prepared to update your content when the need arises. And then, of course, keeping your website secure and backed up. And that is very, very important if you've decided to go ahead with WordPress. WordPress is a wonderful website platform, by the way. It is extremely versatile, but it does pay off to have a technical person helping you to keep it secure and backed up. And that is something that I can provide for you if you need it. Okay, so let's recap. So first, before we start a website, it's a good idea to have a clear idea of who the target audience is and what the purpose of this website will be, what it does for your business. Then before we start, we should have a list of pages and define what pages we need and what extent of content needs to be written. Then the visual assets. If you need any additional assets such as illustrations or icons or photos, it's a good idea to determine that at the start before we start putting things together. Then there's your domain and your hosting, so your car and what the license plate on the car will be, your email. So it's a good thing to keep in mind before you start what email address you'd like to have. If you just want to keep it simple and use a free at Big Pond or at Yahoo email, that's totally fine. But if you want something a bit more professional, that is going to be factored into the time of setting up your website and connecting your domain and all that. So bear that in mind. That will be an additional thing to factor in cost-wise. And then, of course, integrations and logins. So if you're getting another person to help you out, make sure they've got access to the things that they need. If you would like to take bookings through your website, then make sure before you start that your booking calendar is compatible with your website. And then timeline and responsibilities. So get clear on what parts you're comfortable doing, get clear on what sort of time you'll need to provide feedback or provide input, and make sure you're aware of what your responsibilities will be in this project. And get clear on what you'd like if you're getting people to help, get clear on what you'd like them to do so that there's no confusion, or get it all sorted and defined from the start so that there's no confusion. And then after your website's finished, consider a maintenance plan. Consider what it may need going into the future. Will you need security and technical updates, or will that be handled by your hosting platform? These are questions to ask yourself before you start, and if you're ever in doubt or not sure, this is what I'm here for. Alrighty, so I hope this gives you a good picture of what you may need before stepping into a new website project. If you've got any questions to do with anything I discussed in this presentation, please don't hesitate to reach out to me. The best thing you can do is send me an email. So that's hi@lucozz.com. I've also got limited capacity for some one-to-one appointments if you'd like that. If you'd like to pick my brain about a website situation that you've got, my link is on this slide as well, tidycal.com/Lukoza, Lukoza. So thank you so much for sticking around, and I look forward to making the internet beautiful with your presence.